Will. Sorry it's taken me so long to put this together. Sort of got a bit sidetracked, as you do. So anyway, I was going to just give you a brief overview of how to do a little bit of sharpening, I think, and one popping and so on. I can't remember exactly what it was, but anyway, here we go. So here's your base picture. First thing I want to do is to, as my usual thing, is to pop a new layer. So I've got the background layer to play with. Command J on the Mac, Control J on the PC. First thing I want to do actually is sort out the white balance. Now, if you didn't have a card in there, you can't quite tell where to put the white balance in. One thing you can do is this. Now, if we create a blank layer, which in my machine is Command Shift N. I think on yours it'll be Control Shift N. Just click OK there. That'll create you a blank layer. If you can't do that, then just copy a layer and just fill it. In fact, what I'll do is I'll do it that way. It might be easier. So I delete that layer, take this one, Control J, make a new layer here again, and then Edit, Fill. And what I need you to do is to fill it with 50% grey. Use blending mode normal, opacity 100%, transparency unchecked. So that now will fill that with grey. If you change your blend mode down to difference, what you see is a rather strange looking picture here. And now if you click on the layer below again, and if we zoom in, what I'm looking for is an area that's fairly black. And if I do a Command L to bring up my Control L in your machine, sorry, to bring up the levels, click the middle one for the grey point, and you'll see if I zoom in, you'll see there's an area here which is, on the whole, is fairly dark. So if I click on there, hopefully that will do the job. Click OK. I'm going to zoom back, and now all being well, if I then now uncheck this this grey layer, we'll see something that looks a little bit more like the colours it perhaps should be, and we can test that by turning off and on the visibility of this layer here. So if we turn it off, that's the original picture, and that's one that I've just done a bit of a white balance or colour correction, if you will. It's a bit subjective, I guess, really, at the end of the day. So anyway, the next thing I want to do is to, actually I'm going to just dump that grey layer out of the way so we can't see it. I want to brighten this up a little bit. One of the easiest ways is image adjust shadows and highlights. As you know, I've got my set sort of like this sort of area thing here, so I'll just maybe make it a little bit brighter. Click OK. And here's where I want to start doing some, maybe a little bit different to what you've done before, I'm not sure. I want to make it pop a little bit, so I'm going to use a sharpening tool, but not necessarily to sharpen. If I go into Unsharp Mask, with the sharpening tool, I won't go into details at the moment, but this radius is looking at relative contrast, if you will. So if you make the radius big, it looks at a much bigger area across the whole picture, rather than just little individual steps, like if you want to sharpen tiny lines and that. So if I exaggerate this, the amount here, for example, right up here, you'll see it starts to do, I guess, like HDR type effect, if you will. So we can just go completely bonkers with it, which is a bit overdone. But for this particular picture, around about 18 should do the trick. So click OK there. The next thing I'm going to do is to copy a layer again, so Control J to copy layer, and then I'm going to go to Filter, Other, High Pass, and what I want to do there is just sort of adjust this slider here until I can just see the outline edges. So if I overcook it, you'll see we start to see more and more and more, and so on. So you'll see what I'm going to do in a minute. So I'm going to bring this right back down because I just want to pick out the edges of the picture. And what he's going to do is going to help us just sharpen those outside edges, but I don't want to start sharpening the individual detail in the skin because that's going to make it look a bit orange peely. So if we leave it around about, maybe that's a bit too much, maybe around about 2.9, something like that, you can play around with that. Click OK, and now we need to set this blend mode to vivid. Okay, and now if I zoom in, you'll see if I switch this light on and off, you'll see the effect it's having. If you look at the around her eyes, click this on and off, you'll see it just brings it, or appears to bring it into tighter focus, if you will. So okay, so there we go. And now what I want to do, I'm going to make a copy of all these layers, if you will, combine them together by I do a Command Alt Shift E. For you that'll be Control Alt Shift and E. That'll blend them all together into one copy layer. I can turn these two off so we can see where we started to where we're at the moment. So far so good. Now the thing I wanted to do was, because I know you're not using Imaginomic Portraiture yet, so I wanted to show you again to demonstrate what this can do to this picture. Before we start, we've got a couple of little areas here and here we should tidy up really. So just for the sake of ease, just the spot healing tool, the top one. Let's just dive in. And we need to just knock a couple of these bits and pieces out here. These are obviously not part of her normal skin. This is just damage that she's done to herself, as children will do, of course. Anything else? Yeah, might as well pick up the little bits and pieces that will draw the eye. So you can just ping these off, just like that. So anyway, one more. There we go. Anyway, that's pretty much tidied the skin from the blemish point of view. And now, if I go down to Imaginomic Portraiture, this is a pretty easy tool to use on the whole. Essentially, there's all sorts of different settings you've got. You can all these various settings. I set it to default. You can play around with all the sliders, but for this one, just set to default. Then click the little tool here to the left to add skin tone to the mask, and then you just go around and you click on here until this one has got all the skin bits in it. So we want to try and get as much of the skin in as we can. Okay, that's going to be close enough. I'm just going to zoom in a bit so you can see what it's doing. And you can see already a difference between the two skins there. If I now click OK, it's as simple as that. It will now process it. As you can see here, my machine's doing a lot of other stuff in the background, unfortunately, so it's chugging a little bit. That should process this up for us. Nearly there. Okay, so now you can see that what we have is a somewhat smooth skin. If I turn this off, you can see some of the textures have gone. Now this is one of those areas where I tend, if I switch these bottom two layers off, I often do a destructive edit because I'm not too worried about it. I want to remove the smoothing on the bow and so on, so I'm just going to grab the eraser tool, select that top layer. I'm just going to remove that and also remove some of these bits and pieces I don't want down here. Normally I wouldn't do a destructive edit, I'd put a mask in and just knock it out and so on, but in this case I'm just going to get rid of it. I've got my flow down 20%. I thought it was running a bit slow. There we go. That'll do me. I'm going to put that back on for a moment. So what I want to do here now, again, I'm going to apply that unsharp mask to this tool again, because this is obviously just a little bit flat now. So what I'm going to do is go to Filter, Sharpen, Unsharp Mask, and you'll see we can just get a little tiny bit more definition into there. And if I overdo this, you'll see what it's going to do again. So it's really, if you really cook it, you can see it's actually not doing an individual line sharpen, but it's actually doing this overall sort of like tonal contrast, if you will. So I'm going to bring this back down to, again, back where we were, to be honest, about there. Click OK. And what I'll do is I'll just do and undo that what I just did, and you'll see the difference. So with it off, what we just did, on, off, and it just puts a little bit of depth into the picture. Finally, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to combine these with the Command Alt Shift E, turn these two off, and then you can see from where we started and where we ended up. I think maybe we could probably use just a tiny weeny bit of brightening in there. So if we just pull that up just slightly, maybe to there, something like that. And so, final picture where we started. So get a bit closer so you can see. So that's where we started, and that's where we ended up. So you can actually take something and really sort of pop it out just with a couple of very simple steps at the end of the day. So I do recommend you use Imaginomic Portrait. It is better by a country mile than anything else on the market for skin treatment. It's up to you, but I really urge you to give it a go. Alright, hope that was some benefit to you. Talk to you soon. Bye now.